The year is 2015. I decided on what my major would be for the industry I'd work in as a sophomore in college. The price of oil tanked, so gas prices were under $3, and it was Jeff Gordon's final season in NASCAR. But the biggest thing was the Civil War of 2015 for the NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour. The Civil War of 2015 included three main battles: the Battle of the Chassis Manufacturers, the Battle of Engine Packages, and the Battle of Suspension Setup. There was a strong fight between 5 drivers for the championship with all varying chassis. So don't worry, we'll get to that drama later. Starting the year off at Speed Weeks at the New Smyrna Speedway in February, all the main chassis manufacturers debuted their new generation of Tour-type modified chassis available for order. Ryan Preece moved to the Eddie Partridge No. 6 modified and debuted the Troyer Race Cars TA1 chassis. Eric Goodale, in his own No. 58 modified, debuted the other Troyer Race Cars chassis, the TA2 chassis. Another team that jumped on the next-gen Troyer chassis was Woody Pitcat's No. 88 Buzz Chew-owned team. They won the prior year at New Hampshire with the TA1 chassis. However, as a fan, I never even realized the new chassis until 2015. Pitcat finally had a well-financed team and was ready to rock. He would be a contender all season. Bobby Santos, driving for the Tenio No. 44 team, also updated to the newer Troyer TA1 chassis and was looking to chase the championship as well. Fresh off his 2014 Valenti Modified Racing Series championship in the Spear Point No. 21 team, Justin Bonsignor brought the brand new next generation Spafco modified chassis to Speed Weeks in 2015 with the Ken Massa-owned M3 racing team. He won his 2014 VEMRS championship with the same car owner as the owner and founder of Spafco Race Cars, Art Berry. When the dust settled for Speed Weeks, Ryan Preece conquered the Tour-type modified Speed Weeks championship and won the Richie Evans Memorial Race on the final night. Heading back to New England, he had lots of confidence going into the 2015 NASCAR season. When the 2015 season opener at the Thompson Speedway approached, many eyes were on another team, the defending champions, Doug Coby in the No. 2, Mike Smeriglio, the third-owned team. These guys brought an all-new chassis manufacturer to the track, the LFR chassis. LFR chassis debuted in 2014 with owner and founder Rob Fuller. However, he wasn't competitive on the tour, so this chassis went completely under the radar until Coby utilized it in the following season. Donnie Leah would move to the No. 8 Cypher construction team, and they would jump on the LFR chassis bandwagon, making it 2 full-time LFR chassis, chasing the title in 2015. However, there was one team that wasn't blessed with new equipment, the V4 Mystic Missile team owned by Bob Garbarino, with driver Todd Zegedy. These guys still had the older Troyer chassis, known as the 08/10 Troyer. This team isn't as financed as the other teams previously mentioned, but would still be in the hunt for the title. A few other chassis used that were updated for the year was the Chassis Dynamics car for Rowan Pennick, the Raceworks chassis of John McKennedy, and the Northeast Race Cars and Parts chassis, which to my knowledge are older Troyers with TA1 add-ons. Drivers Steve Massey in his family-owned car, and Ted Christopher with Cato Racing, and eventually Chris Auer Racing, would utilize this chassis package. The second battle in the Civil War of 2015 is the Battle of Engine Packages. Traditionally, the built open 18-degree engine was used for Tour-type modifieds. However, in 2015, teams were looking for a more inexpensive way to go racing, and the largest expense was the engine. Most engine builders would charge around $30,000 to $40,000 for a fully built 358 cubic inch open motor for NASCAR Modified Tour racing. However, the quality and durability was there and could easily be repaired. However, the new NASCAR SPEC engine prepared by Robert Yates Engines in North Carolina would retail for around $25,000. Now that's a decent bargain, and the positives don't stop there. The engine actually produced a bit more power and weighed less. I'll get back to the weight advantage in the next battle. The only downsides were that it burned more fuel, and more importantly, there was no ability to repair the engine. So it appeared you had to buy a brand new engine if anything went wrong. It sounded like a gamble and could be too good to be true. The SPEC engines also allowed teams to run a larger carburetor, which would increase the torque, allowing for faster lap times. At places like Thompson Speedway, with high speeds, this was a big advantage. Car owner Bob Garbarino was the most vocal towards the new SPEC engine and wanted to know what the deal was. As previously mentioned, he didn't have tons of money to throw at a race car. Garbarino had a long-time relationship with engine builder Hutter Performance. In addition, Hutter Performance stopped taking orders for Tour-type modified engines years prior, and you had to be on a short list to even get one made for you in present day. Garbarino was one of them on that list, and he said, "I pay $40,000 for my Hutter engines, and in my entire career, I've only had the engine blow up twice. If I need to fix my engine, I can get it done." Now with the SPEC engine, there's no parity, it's not even close. They brought the fox into the henhouse, now the feathers are flying, and they're trying to straighten it out. In my view, it's wrong. It's wrong from any concept. It was all done on the notion that it was going to be less expensive way to go racing. That was it, and that's not the case. That's not the case at all, the way I see. If you haven't accomplished that, what have you accomplished? They can say anything they want to say, but the reality is they're up to the price of the built motors. They can blame the motor builders if they want. They can blame Roush Yates, or whoever they want to blame. But the problem is you've got to write out the check. That's not a fact of life. They are not less expensive. And not only are they not less expensive, they've taken what we have, what they call expensive motors, and made them worthless. So I get hit from both sides of the head. Now I can introduce the third battle of the Civil War of 2015, the Battle of Suspension Setups. Now this may sound like traditional racing. Every team has to fight to find the best handling setup to be the fastest each race. But in 2015 and beyond, it has become huge. The shock and spring setup is the biggest thing. Coby utilized Fox shocks and Draco springs to help him to victory. Another major setup was the use of coil binding. Coil binding, to my knowledge, utilized very soft front springs and very stiff rear springs to control the pitch attitude of the body. This is in contrast with conventional setups, which place the stiffer springs at the front of the car for superior mechanical grip. That is grip via the vehicle suspension and tires. Coil binding uses aerodynamics to produce grip. As a car approaches the end of a straightaway, the downforce generated by the body of the car should increase the sprung weight until the coil springs compress until they bind and the suspension can no longer travel. The goal of coil binding is to keep the front splitter at the front of the car as low to the ground as possible to create an area of low pressure under the car. The result is similar to ground effects. Under braking, weight transfer causes more weight to shift forward as the vehicle decelerates. This helps to maintain the low pressure area below the car by keeping the front of the car low to the ground. While coil bind setups do yield faster lap times, the cars are more sensitive to turbulence generated by nearby cars. Another suspension advantage is the weight of the car. As previously mentioned, the NASCAR SPEC engine weighed less, so to meet the weight requirements, teams needed to add weight. The upside is they would add weight wherever they wanted. The obvious choice was to follow the low, light, and left analogy. This is where on a counterclockwise racetrack with only left turns, you'd add weight to the left side of the car, and the lowest point being the left rear. It helps the rear stagger and take some pressure off the tires to grip the racetrack in the turns. NASCAR eventually outlawed coil binding on the Modified Tour ever since, and local series have done as well. Doug Coby would start his title defense and quest to repeat by winning the season opening icebreaker 150 in dominating fashion. He led the most laps and showed if anyone wanted the championship ring, you would have to go through the two teams. Heading into the greatest race in the history of spring, the Stafford Spring Sizzler, all eyes were on Coby. This may have helped Woody Pitkat, as not as much pressure was on him to prove he should be a championship contender. At his home track, Pitkat would capture his greatest victory in his career. By pitting later for fresh rubber, he was able to track down the leader and pass Todd Szegedy late in the race for the win, and taste the milk with the wreath around his neck in victory lane. It was a big confidence boost for Pitkat. He even took over the championship point lead from Doug Coby, but Coby was about to head back to Thompson, where he was so dominant in April. Heading into the Waterford Speed Bowl for the third race of the season, Ryan Preece was looking to finally cash in on a victory. He was competitive at the Sizzler, but wasn't able to keep pace late in the event. However, all his rivals would start ahead of him at a track he has been successful at in the past. Preece's team decided to take the older Troyer car they had in the stable to Waterford. Preece's team used JRI shocks, unlike Coby with Fox shocks as their preference. It seemed to work out fine as Preece would make the pass on the outside lane from pole sitter Donnie Leah earlier in the event, and then hold off Ted Christopher and eventually Doug Coby on a green-white checkered restart to win the Mr. Rooter 161 at the Speed Bowl for his first win of the year. Then he would return to Stafford Speedway the following week and go back-to-back on the Tour season, winning that race and taking the point lead as they head back to Thompson. As the summer heated up, so did the title chase. Woody Pitcat would steal the pole from Doug Coby. However, Coby knew he couldn't let his dominance at the icebreaker be a fluke. He took the lead from Pitcat on lap 2 and never looked back. Coby went lights out on the field and led all but one lap in the 125-lap race en route to another victory at Thompson, coupled with a max points day towards the championship. Another driver that got back on his feet was Justin Bond Sr. in the 51 SPEC race car. He had an issue in the season opener, but was able to get some momentum going as the Tour made its way to his home track of Riverhead Raceway in Long Island. On an overcast day with threatening skies, the only thing threatening to the championship fight was Justin Bond Sr.'s stranglehold on his home turf, the quarter-mile bull ring of Riverhead Raceway. Bond Sr. would get around fellow Long Islander Timmy Solomito and take the lead. He would hold off Todd Szegedy and Doug Coby en route to his first win in 2015. However, even though he'd win in the return in September and be a consistent front-runner, his slow start would stop him from being in contention for the title. Todd Szegedy, on the other hand, was still flirting with the title, and as the Tour headed to its biggest event at New Hampshire, Szegedy would have some tricks of his own in store for the field. The point standings would be locked in a tie for first place between Ryan Preece and Doug Coby as they headed into Loudon. When the Modifieds took to the track in Loudon, New Hampshire, there was a different beast under the hood of the Mystic Missile modified for Todd Szegedy. Car owner Bob Garbarino decided he wanted more from his race car. He knew his driver had the skill necessary, and at high horsepower track that New Hampshire is, he wanted to see what the NASCAR SPEC engine could do and if it was the real deal. Well, he still had the old Trier chassis, but with a stronger motor, it did the trick. A Szegedy dodged battle with the leaders multiple times, exchanging the lead. He avoided a restart crash around halfway, which took out the leader Doug Coby. Szegedy was able to hold off the newer chassis of Leah and Santos and score one win for the older chassis at New Hampshire. There were 29 lead changes throughout the race with 7 different leaders, leading to another classic at New Hampshire. Ryan Preece would take the point lead after breaking the tie with Doug Coby after Riverhead. Now he held a slim 4-point lead over Pitcat as they headed to Monadnock. At the halfway point in the season, the win column for race car chassis was Troyer race cars with their TA1 chassis at 3, LFR chassis at 2, SPEC at 1, and the past generation Troyer at 1. Could anyone else break through and win? Monadnock was next on the schedule, and LFR would be able to add its 3rd win of the year to the leaderboard, with Doug Coby winning the race. After Monadnock, Woody Pitcat would overtake Preece for the points lead, but the Tour was heading back to Stafford, where Preece shined in May. Preece would make a move for the lead past halfway on TC Ted Christopher and never look back on his way to his 3rd win of the year. With the win, he would now take the point lead back as the series went on to Thompson. As the summer was coming to a close, the heat on the racetrack reached a boiling point. In one of the best Thompson races to have witnessed in person, this season's Budweiser King of Beers 150 event became an absolute banger and instant classic. The race saw 3 lead changes in the first 14 laps and competitive racing throughout. However, Doug Coby still showed he was the king of Thompson in 2015. When Chase Dowling decided to short pit, he was the only car to stay out when all the leaders pitting for the lap 88 caution. When the race resumed, it appeared he spun his tires and Coby got an enormous launch. The officials saw otherwise and black flagged Coby for jumping the restart. However, you need luck to win anything, and Coby had it. The caution flew a couple laps after NASCAR posted him, so he was able to go to the rear of the field without losing a lap. Then the race became amazing to watch. The top four of Christopher, Preece, Szegedy, and Pitcat were under a blanket for the rest of the race. Preece made a move to take the lead from Christopher, but TC did the crossover on Preece, and they raced side by side for a lap battling for the lead. Pitcat was able to get by Szegedy as this happened, and then eventually by Preece. While all that was going on, Coby was gaining positions, but was in need of a caution flag. And he got it. He got it when the leader TC spun in turn 3. Coby lined up fourth on the restart with 8 to go, and was in the preferred outside lane on restarts at Thompson. He got a great run down the backstretch on leader Pitcat and made his move for the lead. In what was a very controversial attempt to pass Pitcat, he made contact into the door of the 88 and moved Pitcat into the marbles as Coby surged on to get the win. Pitcat and Szegedy were frustrated with the way Coby raced at the end, stating he has too good of equipment and is too good of a driver to have to resort to banging wheels to make the pass, especially when it's not the last lap. The point standings showed Pitcat ahead of Preece by 1 single point. Coby was in third now, just points out of first. As the dust settled, it was on to Thunder Valley and the last great coliseum of Bristol Motor Speedway. The Modifieds headed south to close out the month of August in Bristol, Tennessee, but nobody was expecting what was about to happen to some of the championship contenders. On lap 2, third-place driver Doug Coby got very loose and hit head-on into the wall, collecting Todd Szegedy and Justin Bonsignor, whom both had nowhere to go. The three drivers would finish 34th, 35th, and 36th respectively. The race was halted for rain and had to wait until 11 p.m. to restart. Pitcat and Preece battled for the lead until the red flag came out for rain on lap 103, effectively ending the race. Ryan Preece was the winner and would take over the points lead by 2 points with 4 races remaining. The Modifieds had their second race of the year at Riverhead Raceway, and Justin Bonsignor would get back on track to win his second race of the year. With just 3 races remaining, Ryan Preece would take a 1-point lead into the wildcard race at New Hampshire, but nobody knew how much drama was about to unfold. Normally, New Hampshire modified races are always must-see TV, and this race was just that. Unfortunately, it includes one of the most controversial finishes for the wrong reasons. The rivalries amongst the top 4 in points would hit its most tumultuous point. While all the guys in points would exchange the lead with a total of 14 lead changes throughout the 100-lap distance, the final lead change would be the only one tough to stomach. Ryan Preece was being bump drafted by second-place Doug Coby while leading going into turn 1 on the last lap, and as they hit the apex of the corner, Coby bumped Preece and sent him spinning, and a melee ensued. Szegedy rode up along the wall in turn 2 while Pitcat hit the spinning Preece and others were involved. The caution froze the field and Coby was the winner. Preece finished 19th, Pitcat was able to drive back and finish 10th, and Szegedy finished 20th. Pitcat would inherit the point lead by 8 points over Preece, and Coby closed to within 11. Szegedy was basically knocked out of contention for the championship with the wreck and was sitting 68 points behind, with 2 races remaining in the season. A lot of chatter ensued over the following week, and even to this day it is still talked about. When I mentioned coil binding at the beginning, Coby and Preece joked about it on a podcast last year. Take a listen.
That Loudon?
Yeah, of course it is.
Yeah. Which, in all honesty, Doug just wanted to wreck me to win the championship, and that's what happened. But it had something to do with coil binding was just becoming a thing, and it went underneath the rear bumper, and he didn't mean to jack me up, but it happened.
Why are we?
After the race, Coby said, "Every one of us, we race and things are going to happen. That's the nature of the beast. Whether you choose to believe stuff happens on purpose or stuff happens because we are race car drivers driving race cars at 150 miles per hour, that's the only thing I can say. I don't think I made a mistake. I think I sent him into the corner like I should, rolled through the gas like I should, and was content to roll up off the corner, off of turn 2 and get a big run down the backstretch. And that never happened because he screwed us up in the middle of the corner. I know what my intentions were. I know when I do things on purpose, and I don't. And I'm probably the only one in our series that will step up and say when I do something on purpose, that I did it on purpose. I didn't do this on purpose. I think he checked me up in the middle of the corner to try to slow me up. Preece, on the other hand, went the opposite. He said, I got wrecked leading this race. I didn't do anything. I didn't check up more than any other time I have. The guy leading gets tight. The guy leading has a way better run. Control your car. He's good enough to do it. I don't know what happened. There's nothing he can say that as far as what happened that's going to change anything. The Stafford Fall Final would see Ryan Preece dominate the first two-thirds of the event until he lost the lead to Donnie Leah and Doug Coby. He had a chance at Coby for the win, but didn't have enough to pass him. It was Coby's 6th win of the season and would send Coby and Preece into the finale at Thompson locked in a tie for first place in the standings. At the season finale for the Modifieds at Thompson, Doug Coby and crew brought their A-game. The only team that gave him a run for the money was Justin Bond Sr., as he would lead a third of the race and almost hang on for the win, until he was passed late by Coby for the race win with only 6 laps remaining. Coby would ophically be crowned the 2015 champion and add a 3rd ring to his collection by 11 points over 2nd place, Ryan Preece. LFR's chassis won the battle of the chassis manufacturers with 7 wins to Troyer's 4. Spafco race cars would tie with the older generation Troyers at 2 wins apiece. The SPEC motor proved to be king at this point. However, we still need to have engine builders in the racing scene so prices don't go crazy for teams on tighter budgets. Having a free market in modified racing now with such differing backgrounds and chassis setups for the next gen, modified race cars is great. However, we cannot allow technology to price everybody out of the sport. Now, with nearly a decade to look back on, it's really hard to say if it's good or bad. Us fans don't know what teams are truly spending for assembled chassis and engines. What about transmissions and race seats? We know tires and fuel are a constant expense for every race at a couple thousand. Currently, the chassis scene is Fury, which Rob Fuller sold LFR to, TFR, which is Troyer and LFR together, Spafco, Raceworks, the 1st and 2nd generation LFR chassis, Chassis Pro, which is hot in the SK Light and SK Modified scene, PSR Products, which has had a tremendous amount of success, especially down south and at Thompson Speedway with Mike Christopher Jr., and the old school home build chassis like the Bowler 3 team. I'm proud of where modified racing is heading and hope for the best. Thank you for watching. I hope you share this video with your friends. So long from the Speedway.